If you've ever sat next to an airplane window, you may have noticed something strange. A tiny hole at the bottom of the window. Most passengers never even see it, but that small hole is actually one of the most important safety features on the entire aircraft. And without it, airplane windows could become extremely dangerous. At 35,000 feet, the outside air pressure is so low that humans couldn't survive without cabin pressurization. Inside the aircraft, the cabin is artificially pressurized to keep passengers alive and comfortable. But that creates a huge problem because airplane windows must constantly withstand an enormous pressure difference during every flight. And that tiny hole helps manage it. Most people think airplane windows are made from a single layer of glass. They aren't. Modern airliner windows usually contain multiple layers of transparent acrylic. Each layer has a specific purpose. The outer layer handles most of the external pressure. The middle layer acts as a backup safety layer, and the inner layer, the one passengers touch, mainly protects the window from scratches and damage inside the cabin. But the real secret is hidden inside the middle layer. That's where the tiny hole is located. That tiny opening is called a bleed hole, or breather hole. Its job is surprisingly important. Remember the pressure difference between the cabin and the outside atmosphere? Without the hole, pressure would build unevenly between the window layers. The bleed hole allows air pressure to equalize between the cabin and the space inside the window assembly. As a result, most of the pressure load is placed on the strong outer window layer, exactly where engineers want it. That dramatically reduces stress on the inner layers. In other words, the tiny hole helps control how pressure is distributed across the window. At cruising altitude, conditions outside the aircraft are extremely hostile. Temperatures can drop below -50 degrees Celsius. Air pressure becomes dangerously low. Meanwhile, the cabin remains warm and pressurized. That means airplane windows constantly experience huge pressure forces pushing outward. Every flight cycle, takeoff, climb, cruising, descent, creates stress on the aircraft's structure. Over thousands of flights, that stress adds up. The tiny bleed hole helps reduce long-term fatigue on the window system. And in aviation, reducing fatigue is critical for safety. There's another interesting detail. Airplane windows are rounded instead of square. And that's also related to pressure. Square corners create concentrated stress points. Under high pressure, cracks are more likely to form there. Rounded shapes distribute stress much more evenly. This lesson was learned the hard way in the early days of commercial aviation. After several catastrophic failures involving square aircraft windows, engineers completely redesigned modern airliner windows for safety. Surprisingly, airplane windows are designed with multiple backup layers. Even if one layer cracks, the others can still maintain structural integrity. Pilots are trained to handle window damage situations, and modern aircraft windows are tested under extreme conditions, pressure, temperature changes, impacts, and repeated flight cycles. The system is built with redundancy because at high altitude, window failure could become catastrophic. That's why even the smallest design features matter, including that tiny hole. So why do airplane windows have tiny holes? Because that small opening helps control pressure between the window layers and reduces stress during flight. It may look insignificant, but at 35,000 feet, tiny engineering details can make the difference between safety and disaster. And that's exactly why modern aviation depends on thousands of invisible features most passengers never notice.